We do record our videos, post them on YouTube. Usually we get them up, our group gets them up within several days. So we're ready to begin. This month, Crystal has provided a presentation on using Access VBA to modified Word document properties. And I will turn the time over to her, introduce herself, give us a little bit about her background, as much as she feels necessary. We all know her, but because it goes on YouTube, it'd be nice to have a little bit more of an intro just in case. And you can tell us about your project and how it goes. Thanks. Where you go.
Well, thank you, George. I'm going to be talking about modifying Word document properties with Access. And most people don't use Word document properties. And before I just dive too deep into this, I just want to say that there's a link in the chat for a web page. And if you joined later than the link, it can get posted again. But you can download the sample Access database. Well, it's not a sample Access database. It's actually quite a magnificent tool. 2 sample Word documents, this presentation that I'm showing you, and there's the web page where you can get these. Now, why would anybody use a Word document property? What is the benefit? I can use bookmarks. I can look for bookmarks. I can use merge documents. So why else would I need anything different? Well, everywhere a Word document property is referenced in a document, and that happens via inputting a field in the document, changes. So if you change a property, the document property, in one place, just, its value, then every single place, 1, 10, 50, it doesn't matter how many times it's in there, all of them will change, all of them. So you can modify values without having to search. And there's 2 types of properties. There's built-in properties and there's custom properties. And some of the built-in properties can be displayed in File Explorer columns. So if you fill them out, you can show them in the Windows File Explorer, sort by them, look and see what they are just by looking at the file names. And that can help you find the file that you're looking for. Now, the problem with Word, as you will see, is it's really hard to just get a list of all the property names and the values so that you can actually read it. And that's a big reason why I decided to use Access. Some of the things I'm going to show you are, I already talked about the 2 types of properties, built-in and custom. I'm going to show you steps to create and modify them in Word, so then you can appreciate how smooth Access is. I'm going to show you how to display them in File Explorer columns. I'm going to be using, at one point, my Quick Access toolbar to insert a field faster when I'm in Word. And I do have a video on customizing the Créate for those of you that don't do that, although with this audience, I think you do. I'll be talking about field codes, field shading, and what I'm really not going to demonstrate is unlinking. Well, maybe I will demonstrate that. And what unlinking is when you want to actually distribute something and you want to turn all those fields, all that variable information into just snap point in time values. You want to just unlink. So now I'm going to do a little demo with Word. I've got 2 demo documents that I'm going to be using. The first one is already open, the second one isn't. I'm also going to show you some VBA code in Word Now I have a link posted to this code, which is also at the bottom of this slide, where you can go get the code that I actually put in my normal document. So it lets me open any document, just run a program, and it'll tell me all the properties that are, all the document properties that are set up there. So here I have a Word document, and what you see in gray shading are fields, and those fields contain document properties. Now this one is selected. I changed my highlight colors just to make them a little easier to read, because normally the selection color and the field shading color are the same in Word, but I changed my highlight colors for Word to be white on black instead of being on a gray background. So here I have a document with a lot of variable information. So managing this, each of these gray shaded things is a field. So if I go to the File and then Info, then I see over here on the right, I have something called Properties. Now, a lot of you might not really have paid much attention to this, but you should pay more attention. Here we have like the title of the document. Now, this is one of the things that shows up in Windows File Explorer. So if you fill it out, you can show it when you just are looking at your list of files. And so is comments. You can drop this down and choose to show advanced properties, which is a dialog box. Now, also at the bottom, you can show all properties, but I do want to tell you that you can make changes here. So if I wanted to change this to, and it's really hard to read it, isn't it? And there's no way to make it wider. I mean, even if I make my screen wider, that box doesn't get wider. So I'm kind of stuck with it how it is. So I'll at the end, I'll just put demo December 7th. Now, if I go to the advanced properties, I can see a summary, and here I'm seeing some of the same properties that I saw over here. I can look at statistics. I can look at other things here, but I'm going to focus on summary and custom. So all those gray shaded areas in my document were fields that contain document properties. But as you can see, oh, look at this dialog box. Oh, where's my little resizing thing down here to make it bigger? In order to actually read much of this stuff, I have to select it. And then I can look up here. I have a little bit wider space, but still you can see you got to keep these names short. So here's our way to manage all of our custom document properties. But, we can pick something from the list. We can change it. Like the company was ABC Company. Well, maybe now it's ABC Corporation. And so I'll just click modify. So I'll modify that document property. And then for contact, my contact is Thomas Jefferson. And maybe we're just going to call it Tom. So we'll modify that one too. And you could come down here. You could change more of your document properties. I'll just change 2 of them for now and say OK. And I'll go back to my document. Now you see that this did not get updated yet because there's actually 2 steps. One, you change the property. 2, you update the field. So now that one says ABC Corporation. And the other thing I changed was Thomas Jefferson. But let's say I might have had, a lot of other changes. So how do I just update them all at once? Well, you select the whole document. I just pressed Control A. Now I'm going to right click and update field. And so now I have my new values. So as you can see, this is really, really a great way to substitute, like, oh, especially if your database has all this information in it. I mean, you can do bookmarks, you can do merge fields, but you have to duplicate those. Well, you don't if you're using document property. But as you can see, it's a little unwieldy to manage them with Word. So let me continue with the PowerPoint presentation. So how can we do it better? Well, we can use Access. So now that the property information is over here on the right in this subform. Now on the screen, you'll also see other information, which I'll talk about a little bit, but I'm really going to focus on this property information. Notice that I can see the whole list. I can see its data type. I can see its active value. Now that's the value in the document. And then if I wanted to change it to something else, I could put in a new value. And if you put in a new value, they get bolded. And also the update checkbox gets set. And up here stands for update. And now I realize I could have used a 2-letter word, do, and I might change that. But I didn't dare do it today, even though I thought about it today. Oh, I kind of heeded your advice, Adrian. I didn't make any changes to this database after 2:30. Now it's 8:30. So I took a shower, I took a walk. I tried not to make any modifications. But as you can see, Access lets you see a lot more. Now, the relationships in the Access database, I have documents. Now, right now, this little tool that I'm sharing with you only deals with the active document. So in the document table, doc ID 0 is the active document, and it doesn't need to have a name or any other information. But just because I did want to share something that was not like too broken leg with you, I actually did put in this document and doc property table, even though I could have limited this to just a property table because it does have an active value. And I did at one point in this property table also have another field for the value that I want to change it to. But I moved that to the doc property table just to be more realistic, because if you're really going to use this logic in an application, you're going to have, you're going to keep track of document information. So you're going to need a document ID. And then there's a data type table in here, which just not only does it do the data types in Access, but it also has the data type, the word data type numbers and little text. So now I'm going to open up Access. You saw a slide, and I'm going to demonstrate as opposed to reviewing all the stuff in this slide about what I'm going to show you. I'll go to the next slide and escape the PowerPoint presentation and now go into Access. So when you open the Access database that I'm sharing with you, and I guess I can turn off the hidden object or the system objects. I don't need to see those for this. So we have these 4 tables, which I showed you on the relationships diagram. And now I do have this Word document open, and I'm going to just select ABC Corporation again, and I'll just minimize this. And now in Access, I'm going to list my open documents. And I just have this one document open right now. But when it's selected, it reads the selection information. So it tells me the selection is ABC Corporation, and these are selectable, so you can copy and paste them. It also tells me how many characters it is. It gives me a result because it's actually a field. So it gives me the field code, and it tells me that it's a doc property field. And then it tells me that the property name is a company. And then also in the active document, let me just pull up Word for a minute here, and I'll scoot it over this way a little bit. Right now, all of the fields are shaded. And what I didn't tell you yet is how you can change that shading. So I'll tell you now, and look at how cumbersome this is. File, Options, Advanced, Show Document Content, Field Shading. Ah, here it is. Oh, I just want it to be on when selected. So I'll say OK here. Now it only does the field shading if the field is selected. So you see kind of how cumbersome that is to change it. Now, in order to get access to update, I have to do something to trigger that. I can just read the selection again. Of course, now I don't have the same text selected, but it reads that I only want to see the field shading when it's selected. But I can also use this to change it. So I can say always, bang, there it is, always, never, never, just when selected. So I can change it very quickly with Access. Oh, you could do the same thing with Word too. I mean, you can write forms in Word with in the Visual Basic Editor, but Access just has so many other advantages. For one thing, it's a database, so you can keep track of values. So here's some statistics, just how many paragraphs, and kind of the reason why I added this stuff in is just so if you want to calculate any of this, there's some code you can look at to see how to do it. I'm not going to show you that code today. What I'm focusing on is these property names. And so this will grow. All right, let me just shrink the navigate. I'll just maximize this because I've set this subform up to these two things are anchored, active value and new value. So as this gets wider and bigger, you see more and more. Now, let's say, oh, ABC Corporation. No, that's not it. It was company. Where was my head? So now I'm going to put this back to company. And when I change it, it gets bolded and update flag gets set. Now I can unset this manually, but if you do that manually, then you'll have to manually trigger it again when you want it. And now I see Tom Jefferson has been read, but really, you know what? Where was my head on that one too? We're going to put it back to Thomas. I was getting him confused with somebody else. So we'll put him back to Thomas. And now I can see there's two values to update. Two of them have the update flag. And so now I'm just going to update the active document with the new values. Told me it did it. Let's go back over here and see if it did. Thomas Jefferson and ABC Company. So we're back to what we had. Although this is like a whole lot quicker. I can also say, oh, you know, I want to check all my dates. So I'm going to filter this list for the document properties that are dates. And I can see, oh, 2024. Yeah, that's right. Oh, 2022. Oh, that's not right. It's 24. Oh, I can't change that one. I have to change. This one is just echoing the active value. And this one is letting me change it to some new value. So I'm going to change that one. Gets bolded. And I'll change this one also. It gets bolded. I'm just going to look over here for a minute. And you can see that these dates, that's a 2022. And the other ones are as well. So now I can just update these, and it updated two of them. Come back over here, 24. So it's a lot easier to verify information. Let me show all of these. Oh, let me say, I just want to see all my properties that have an email address in them. So I'll give it a pattern. And soon as you tab out of this, it'll automatically apply the filter. Of course, you can click on the filter button too. It does the same thing. And I see I have 2 email addresses in here, and I could look at them and see if they're right. And that's not just any ocean. That's like all the oceans. All the oceans. So I'll change that one. Update the new values. Done. Come over here. And this email address is updated. So you can see how much easier, how much easier it is to do this with Access than it is to do it with Word. I'll just show all the properties again. And let me ask if there are any questions.
How do you link the document to Access?
It's okay. Let me show you some VBA. So this button right here, let me just close this Word document. Just close it. And I'm not going to save it. Now over here, Access doesn't know that this isn't open anymore. But if I list the open documents, it tells me Word isn't open. And so this is what Access does. When I click on this List Open Documents button, let's just go see what's happening. I have a couple global variables. I have this one module called Word Open Close, and at the top of it, I have a Go Word, which is public, which is the Word application. I have a Go Doc, which is public, and that's the active document, or at least what Access thinks is the active document. And then I also have these other 2, which actually I don't think this code that I'm giving you uses, but I just didn't want to take them out. And then I also have global is early. That's just a regular constant that right now I've set to true, and that means that tools references, yes, I distributed it without putting it without setting late binding. Now I think I wrote the code okay to change it, to remove these bottom 2 references. I think I can remove Word and the scripting runtime. Not going to right now, just by setting that to false, so that when it dimensions all this stuff, it'll check to see, do I want early binding or late binding? And the 2 main things that I'm using are Go Word, which is global object Word, and Go Doc, which is global object Doc. So now coming back over here, when I go to the List Open Documents, it's yeah, I really don't need this. This is in case you're copying and pasting code to somewhere else and you want to change your list box control name. Although I think for the most part, I didn't use that variable. So I could probably just remove that. But first it'll see if Go Word is set. And if it isn't, then it'll get the object. And Word has to be open. This tool is to work on the active Word document. Now I do have another version of this, which I pulled this out of to try and I tried to change everything to active document. That actually opens up Word and goes and gets whatever you want. But this is more simple. So if Word isn't open, then we can't list any documents and we just have to clear the form. Now, if Word is open, okay, so let's say Go Word is set. Now we have to make sure that the document that we think is the active document is the document that was the active document when we stored the object variable. So we're just going to look at the name of it and we're going to compare it. And then for each document in GoDoc or Go Word, in all the open documents that are in Word, it's just looping and it's building what it needs to show you in this list box. So this list box is not tied to a table. It's just a value list. And then we do some other things. We read the selection. We read the properties. We get the word statistics. And there you have it. Does that answer your question, Linda?
Not exactly, but I will look at it a little more closely. So you do it all in BASIC. You don't, there is no like, link or, external data or any of that.
Right. When Word is open, it's reading the Word document. So this is actually automation code. It reads what's in Word. It doesn't know anything unless you open up Word and give it something to look at. So now I'm going to open up Word again, and I'm just going to go get what I had before open. Although now I'm going to get another one too. So I'll have two of them open. Oh, I guess I need to find it. I renamed it, I guess. So I don't know if you know you can do this. You can't in Access, but in Word, if you're in the Backstage, you can drag a document from the File Explorer over to here and it'll open it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it opens it when I'm not presenting.
Yeah.
Here, I'm just going to copy the path and do it the old-fashioned way. Open.
Okay.
I just want to have two of these open so that you can see what happens if there's more than one.
I think it did open it.
Oh, yeah, maybe it didn't. I just didn't see it. So now if I list open documents, I'm going to see two of them. And the one that's active is going to be the one that's highlighted. There's nothing selected, so I don't get anything in the selection area. But I do see all the properties. It doesn't matter what's selected to read all these properties. And the thing, too, that I like about this is there's conditional formatting in this list of properties. So these ones that are green, they're built in.
Perfect.
And in the footer of the form, I have a little indicator. And if I'm in a custom property, it'll say custom document property. And this indicator is based on the same thing that this conditional formatting is using. Also, the ones that can show up in Windows Explorer are bold-faced. So those you might like really want to fill out well. There's 5 of them. And you might want to just make sure you fill these out. Now, if I switch between them, let's say I come over here to this other one. Where are you, Word? There you are. So this other one is just a kind of a little list of this meeting here tonight. Yeah. And now if I go over here and I read the selection, notice it switches what's selected up here. And I still don't actually have anything selected, but it gives me different statistics. So if I wanted to, like right now, this is set on the information for my presentation. But if I wanted to use this same document and get information, change the information, having trouble My other screen is so small, so I don't get to see very much on it. Oh, George Hepworth has a raised hand. Do you want to?
I have a couple of questions. I don't know if I'm kind of anticipating something you're going to talk about later or not.
Okay, well, let me just do this real quick.
Yeah.
Now that I got this other page pulled up, let's say over here in Access, I wanted to say, oh, I'm going to do the same thing, but now I'm going to do it next month for Kent's presentation. This next month in January, Kent is presenting. Oh, here, let's get the topic. Okay, this isn't the right topic anymore. Now it's this, and it's not 12/7. And you know what? I don't know why Word does this. This is another reason why I separate the date and the time. Even though Word does let you store date and time together, it doesn't let you manipulate the time part of the date in the user interface, and it adds 4 a.m. I never put that on there. So I'm going to change this anyway to 142024 because that's when Kent's presentation is.
Perfect.
And now let me update the active document with the new values. So it doesn't matter. I can just open up anything that has properties in here. Now, how do we get these properties in here and how do we make them? I think we modified one before, but let's say I also want to have a time property, and time is actually going to be stored separately. So once more in Word, I have to go back to File, Info, and then here I'm going to go to Advanced Properties, Custom, and I'm going to type the name that I want for the property. So I start my properties with a little a, all the custom ones generally, or some character where I can have them grouped. So this will be the time for the presentation, or I think I did meeting because it's a shorter word. Time for the meeting, and this is just going to be text, and I'll say this is 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And I'll add that. And okay. Now that I've defined that property, I can insert it. So how do we insert a property? In Word, the way that we do it, we want to insert something, insert. Okay. Now what? Okay, it's in this text group. Okay, and it's actually under quick parts. So we want to insert text. We want to insert it quickly, I guess, is why they're calling it this. So I'll just click on this little drop down. Here's some of the quick things that I did. And then here I see field. And now when this dialog box comes up, I can, there's all kinds of fields you can insert. But I want to come down to this document property or doc property as it's abbreviated here. And I'll put in the time for the meeting and okay. And now I've got that time in. And if I changed that time over in Access, let's see what happens because I added a new property. And it's not on here because when I read this, it wasn't created yet. So now I'm going to read the selection. Maybe that's not. Oh, do I have to save it? User. There we are. There's the time for the meeting. And if I wanted to change it, I could, but it's the same time no matter who is presenting. Now, document title, this is like the title of, maybe I didn't call this right. I want to get a built-in property here. I want to see what it's got built in for what it's calling the title. So I'm going to go here. Well, actually, I don't need to go here. I showed you that really slow way to insert a field. Well, I put insert field on my quick access toolbar. So I just click on that and I immediately get to this dialog box. Then I can just come down here to doc property. And now I want a built-in property. I want the title. This is something that's going to show up in Windows Explorer. So here, I can see all this information And this is what's going to show up in Windows File Explorer if I want. Now, what I didn't show you yet that I think is really cool that I talked about, but I didn't actually run it, was this code that I have that you can download that there's a link to in the slides. I'm just going to go to the end of this and go to the Visual Basic. And I don't know if it'll, oh, it's not opening up to the right one. It doesn't, okay, I'll do this a little differently then. I'll go to, let me just minimize this for a minute. I'll go to the developer ribbon. I'll go to macros. I started this with an A underscore here again, just so I can find it quickly. I'm just going to go to edit so I can see the code. And you can go get this code. I have this stored in my normal document. So I just press the F5 key here. Did I press F5? Okay, yeah, it's running. And what it does is it creates a list at the end of your document. Well, I guess I can't see that. Let me try switching it this way. Wrong one. All right, so it tells me it's done. And what it did was it created this table of all of the built-in document properties. And the ones that you can show in Windows Explorer, again, a boldface, because I really want you to pay attention to those and fill them out. And then all of the custom document properties. So I could run this on any document. Now, it does just put it at the end of whatever you have. So you can copy or, cut it and paste it to somewhere else. But right now, I'm just going to delete it.
Very quick update, Crystal. It's now coming up to 10 past the hour. So that leaves you 10 or 20 minutes, depending on how long you plan to go.
Okay, can you, is there any questions in the chat,
Well,
Adrian? Or
there
does
are no
anybody just want to turn their mic on and say something?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions that I wanted to address.
Yeah.
The first, what you just showed partially answered one of my two questions, which is this technique seems to rely on all of those fields being predefined in the Word doc, but in that last one, they were not predefined. You created them on the fly, correct?
That's right. And
Okay.
also it's very cumbersome to create them. So obviously what Access can also do a better job of is defining the document properties and then setting them up for you in Word. But there's only so much that I can cover right now.
Yeah. What I was thinking along those lines would be like an invoice where you have a variable number of line items and prices and quantities.
Yeah.
So you could,
in that case, what I would do is I would put a bookmark in the Word document with where that table needs to go. And then have a loop through a record set. And one of the things that we'll get to, I have well, even if we don't get to it, at the end of the slides, I have some links. And one of the links I have is to some Word automation code procedures part on my website. So you can look at those. But I have like how to make a table with Word and how to do those other things that you'd need to do in order to set that up.
Yeah. But the key thing is that it is possible with this same method to generate dynamic content as well as static. That's really, that makes it really valuable in my mind.
Yeah, like the little routine that I just ran to list all the document properties in the Word document uses some of that same code that I have posted on my website. Of course, there's only a minor change if you're going to run it from Word or run it from Access. And I usually write them to run from Word first And then I make them work in Access, and then I change them. I change the heck out of them once they're in Access.
Yeah. Okay, so I have another question, and then Brian has his hand up next. So my second question is, this is all great. Would it be possible to put custom properties into a Word document that wouldn't be exposed as fields that would identify the purpose or the intent of that document, for example?
Oh, sure. I
And
mean,
I-
because you don't have to, once you create the custom property, I mean, it's just like database properties in Access. I put stuff in database properties, like user credentials.
Yeah.
I usually put in a database property, and that way, when the front end is distributed, since those properties are set up, there's no table. It's just the front end is already set up with those properties before it rolls out. And it doesn't matter if the database is closed and then opened again, those properties values still keep their information.
Yeah, that's the answer I was thinking. We did this for a client. This is going back probably 8-10 years, but one of those properties was the mailed date or the delivered date as sort of an internal audit, that this letter was prepared and mailed on such and such a date. That was a custom property on the document that was not displayed, but if they were audited, they could pull that up and say, here's the date and time this was actually delivered to the client.
Oh
There-
yeah, and I just read a little thing in the chat. User form, that's the word I was looking for, Jeff. Jeff said it. That's the way to do the forms in Word. But and you can do a lot of this in Word, but what you can't do easily, what Access does so much better, is make lists of stuff. You can define tables in Access, and you can define, like a whole list of values where it changes. I mean, realistically though, these things just aren't stored in these only tables. You have a whole nother database around it where you have, the information is entered logically, the way that you would, not just in a long list like this. And then something goes and pulls all that information out from the tables and fields and puts it where it needs to go in order for the word code to run.
Okay, Brian, your question, please.
Yeah, thanks, Crystal. It looks great. On your data sheet, I see you've got the add new record enabled with the star line down the bottom. Are you able to add properties via that at this stage?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Say it a little slower.
Oh, sorry. On your Access screen, on your data sheet, you have enabled adding of new records via the star line down the bottom.
Oh, I should have probably not let that happen.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
as it
good
stands-
observation. I shouldn't have let that I shouldn't have let the new line show.
Okay, so as it stands, that isn't a viable way to add a new property to your document.
Well, not with this form. I have I've actually built forms that do that, but they're
Yes.
not in this sample.
Yeah, the example
I'm
I
sure
just
you
gave
could,
of
but
putting an
just
audit
checking
trail
that. Thank you.
did that. We actually wrote the custom property and put the value into it.
So kind of a little summary. I showed you how it lists the open documents. It reads the selection. You can change the field shading from Access. That will be reflected in the active document in Word. You can use Access to modify your document properties. Oh, I showed you how you can filter for a data type, because we said, what are all the dates? But you can also give it pattern. Oh, we did do the pattern too, because I think I looked for emails. And you can also filter for custom or built-in property. And here again, I have more slice and dice things in other databases, but I simplified it here. And then just for some links, the word automation VBA code. Now this first link, now when I do Word when I start the web page name with Word, that means it's word code. But if I start the web page name with a word, that means it's word automation word code. So I gave you a couple links that are wordy links, the two top ones. And then on my website, I have like a section where I have just code that runs in Word. I have code that's specifically designed to run with automation. And I don't even know if I have everything in the list, but I might not. On YouTube, here's my playlist for Word and Word automation. And then here's another presentation I did for Access Lunchtime that I also did for Carl's DevCon, but he didn't publicize it. So I did the same presentation for lunchtime. And there's the video. And then there's just my video for customizing the quick access toolbar. Here's some AUG playlists on YouTube. So like if you want to see if this video is posted yet, you could go to the Access Pacific playlist. No pressure, George. Oh, take your time. Do a good job. But here's the Access Pacific playlist with all the videos that George has put out there. And then here's the Access Lunchtime playlist, which is where Adrian's presentation will be posted that he did not too long ago on the basics of using classes in VBA. And then here's Colin and Alessandro's Access Europe, a link for all their videos. And then just a little bit about me. And then coming up next, I want to say
Can we let Kent introduce his own presentation?
Yes, I want to
Kent's
ask
here.
Kent to do that.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have a bit of a very simple look at what you can do with subclassing your forms, so you don't have to keep repeating the same code right throughout your application. And it's only going to be a simple introduction that allows you to then think of other things that you can actually do with it. That's pretty much what I'm going to do.
We're looking forward
I
to
just
that.
want to say a whole lot more. Kent, that was a really dismal blurb. I know we put you on the spot here, but I saw Kent demonstrate some things and my socks were knocked off.
Yeah, I think we're going to be very impressed, Kent. So don't minimize it all. This is sort of like a continuation of a series of things, which I think is pretty important for a lot of Access developers. This whole idea of classes and using classes. We've had a couple of presentations from John Colby. Adrian's done his. Kent's will sort of fill out the picture in a larger, wider view, I think. And for a lot of us.
George?
Yeah.
Can I say that I've actually had a bit of a preview of what Kent's going to present, and I'd be happy to guarantee that the socks will be knocked off when they get.
Yeah, well, after this meeting, I can give you a very quick skim through what I'll be covering.
Yeah.
But we'll start with just having your forms that have got your buttons for things like save and undo and close and all that sort of stuff. And we'll be using form events raised in the class that will enable and disable your save and undos, depending on whether the form's dirty or it's been saved or what have you. And then we'll have a look at using a subclass for the command buttons that will actually do all the saving and undoing without you actually having to put code behind the form itself.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll have a look at what we can do with text boxes. Now that I've had a chance to think about what I was going to do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of anticipation. I think I see this as a continuation of sort of an idea that Access and VBA has a lot stronger, brighter future than a lot of people have given it credit for. And I think the kind of thing that Adrian and Kent are talking about, and John before, support that idea that there's a lot more we can do to increase the professional level of our applications. And that's my sales pitch. I see it as part of a larger purpose.
And George asked me to put a button, say something about FSO.
Oh,
I
yes,
put this
thank you.
file
Yes.
information button
You're not going to
on.
let me forget that, are you?
Well, I put the button on. And
Okay.
so what I did was I just went through and said, what can I get with FSO? And so here's the little file info button is just information from using FSO.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I didn't show you was
Well, wait, before you go on, why did we do that? What was the motivation for putting that in there?
Well, George, you're the one that told me because VB script might be going bye-bye.
Yeah, there's a move to deprecate VB script, and that file SO is one of the potential casualties if that comes to fruition. Yeah.
Of course, I think Jeffrey Griffith, who's connected, I think you have some comments on that too, don't you, Jeffrey? Jeff.
He doesn't have a microphone. He has to use chat. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I think he took a look at that also. And he took a look at some alternative ways to do things. But I just wanted to kind of point out on my screen right here, because I didn't actually show you in this File Explorer window where I have the title, the comments, the subject, the authors, the company. These are things that are built in Word document properties. So, they're easily set. Especially with Access, but you can just set them in Word too, and they'll show up here and you can sort by them, and it can help you find your documents easier.
Yeah. Especially if you're using shorter, condensed versions of the document title. Anyway. Okay.
Okay, so
are there any other questions about what Crystal has shared with us tonight? Okay, great. Well, in that case, what I'll do is I'll stop the recording. We'll call it a wrap.
well, I want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope I didn't go through things too fast. I hope that you'll actually think about using Word document properties, even if you don't use Access to change them.
Well, I can think of lots of good uses for them. For example, I do room data sheets for architects and things like that, and being able to pump their data out of Access into a Word document would be nice.
And I think Crystal has opened the door for us, but there's a lot more we can pursue with it. So thank you, Crystal, for doing that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for everybody who joined us tonight. I have noted before that we are the Pacific chapter, and we've got Kent in Australia. Brian, I think you're in Australia or New Zealand. I forget.
New Zealand, George.
So we are definitely a Pacific group now, and I appreciate that. FSO is one of the potential casualties of the VB script. There's it's not a definite one way or the other, but that was mentioned as one of the potential things that might be impacted. And I asked Crystal to include it so we'd have a chance to just keep that at the top of everybody's mind. Pay attention to what you're doing so you don't get caught blind.
So, George, you're saying that related to Margaret's question, FSO may get deprecated as part of the deprecation of VB script. Is that what you're saying?
That's what was reported. I think Mike Wolf reported that in his blog, and he got it from somebody else.
Fine.
And again, it's probably unwise to spread it because it has the status of a rumor. But at the same time, I just think, we need to keep our feelers out.
Sure.
especially those of us who are relying on these things.
Yeah, that's the Microsoft scripting runtime library. I mean, I think we're miscalling it to say VB script.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
there is another library that's more full featured than this one.
Yeah.
But we just use this one because it's so easy.
Yeah.
Jeffrey is saying that he's not sure that Mike Wolf's information is exactly 1005 correct.
Yeah, I agree. And I keep using words like potential, possible. It was raised in that his blog article came out, what, about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, on No Longer Set.
Right. Oh, someone has their hand. Oh, they did have their hand up.
I did.
Well, so yes, go.
So what would, if, excuse me, if FSO is, goes away, what are we going to do? How would we replace it? I use it for everything practically.
Yeah. Well, with the DIR, I don't know, Jeff,
Yeah,
do you
I
have
hate
any?
using DIR.
I'm not sure that, Margaret, I'm not sure that actually the idea of FSO being deprecated is very reliable. What we're saying, what going from what Crystal's just explained, it's not FSO and VB script that are being deprecated, but one particular library. In other words, the ability to use a particular library within, I suppose, within Access VBA,
Well,
which
the scripting runtime, yeah.
Yeah, and again,
the same effect. Yeah,
we're not saying that it will, but it was raised in that blog post.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying if we do have, I'm kind of like the Queen Mary. I have a lot of momentum. It takes me a long time to switch gears. So if I need to start getting familiar with an alternative, either DIR is horrible. I've used it a lot before FSO, but there's other things that I need besides DIR.
Yeah, DIR's difficult to use in a way that doesn't trip yourself up. It's easy to if you recurse, you have to keep a sort of completely different set of data to allow that to happen.
Yeah.
I don't think it will hit. I think the truth here is, Margaret, that a lot of projects and a lot of developers will be hit hard if FSO is deprecated. And I wish I could say, oh, Microsoft wouldn't ever do anything so bleeding stupid, but unfortunately, I'm quite
well. I remember when they just decided that they're not going to sell Visual Basic anymore, and they just lost.
Sorry.
I remember when they decided to drop Visual Basic, and hundreds of thousands of developers were just SOL.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal, and they just did it without even, that's it.
Yeah.
Well, you do have plenty of time, I think, to look into alternatives.
Windows Scripting Host Object Model Library. I've never heard of that one. Okay.
Right. Well, that's more, it's bigger.
Yeah.
But I think it has everything in it that FSO has, but it's more complicated to use. FSO is easier. Well, it has, there's less in there, so it's easier to use.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I think are we ready to turn off the recording and
Oh, sure.
yeah, you guys have anything else to discuss around Word automation?